The only thing that would require is for the district attorney's office in Washoe County to continue a misdemeanor DUI trial. I haven't seen it Wadsworth. Perhaps Mr. Stege can engineer that result.
Well,
It's difficult joking on the record, but I'm picking up what Mr. Evenson is putting down. Here's,
Sir, isn't it true you have seen multiple of the pleadings involved in this case, in the guardianship / trustee case?
What do you mean by pleadings?
Isn't it true you've seen items that have been filed in court related to those cases?
I think so.
So, yes, you have seen multiple.
Your Honor, his answer is, I think so. Counsel then follows up with, yes, that's misstating his testimony. Object.
The question's not even out yet. The question is, so the answer to my question is yes, you have seen multiple pleadings in those cases.
And the objection remains that that question misstates the testimony. The testimony was, I think so. He can't then suppose that it's yes. The witness clearly does not know. It calls for speculation.
The clarity of not knowing is the subject of argument. It is a proper leading question.
I think at this point, given the questions and answers we've received so far, I will allow.
So the answer to my question, that whether you have seen multiple copies or multiple pleadings in those cases is yes. Isn't that true?
When you say pleadings, do you mean like, is that pages out of like a document or something? I'm not exactly sure what pleadings are, I'm sorry.
Okay. What's the document that you brought with you to court today?
I don't even know the name of it.
Okay. Why don't you read the first page and tell me the name of it? Can you do that?
Your Honor, now counsel's attempting to have a document read in the record that you indicated was not going to be made a part of the record, that is his private document. I object. Just a backhanded way of doing what you already ruled he couldn't do.
So, Mr. Stege, I believe if the question is clarifying what a pleading is, I think there are
Right.
certainly other ways you can go about that than the way you just described.
Okay. Is it true you've seen documents that have been filed in the court cases involving Susan Hillygus?
Yes.
And you've seen them, for example, because you can tell on the documents you've seen that it references the case. It describes the case by name.
Your Honor, may I water the witness? If we're going to go down this road of cross-examining him as an adverse witness on his knowledge of legal pleadings, I think that there should be some foundation laid as to even if he knows what a legal pleading is. I think that this is incredibly unfair to this witness.
I think questions regarding this witness's knowledge of what pleadings are appropriate. I think that Mr. Stege can ask those questions. And given what counts are filed in the Fifth Amended criminal complaint, obviously legal documents are an issue. So I think that Mr. Stege can ask this witness questions about his understanding of things such as legal documents. I understand that it is taking some time. I hear the frustration in people's voices, but I think that it is relevant.
Sir, your testimony today that you do not know what a legal pleading looks like.
If what you mean by a legal pleading is some sort of a legal document from the court, then I would say so.
In substance, or in form, did the documents that you saw, that you made copies of, they look anything like this?
some of them I do believe so.
Some of them, how many of them?
I couldn't tell you how many I looked at.
And you've seen other documents of this nature, and for the record, I'm holding up admitted A. The other documents involving Mrs. Hillygus' case are similar in form to this, isn't that true?
Your Honor, again, there's no foundation for him to answer this question. He literally has not been shown to know that he knows what Mr. Stege is talking about and that he can answer the question. That's why I asked to voir dire him. Or the court could voir dire him to determine if he has the knowledge to even answer these questions.
But I believe that's what Mr. Stege is attempting to do, showing him a marked and admitted document and saying, does this look similar in form to other documents you've seen? I think that is a way of attempting to go about this.
Okay.
I will-
You've seen other documents in this Susan Hillygus case similar in form to this, isn't that true?
That's been asked and answered twice since he grabbed the documents from the court and went over there.
I think it's difficult when there are multiple objections, which you have a right to make. But let's try and get through this point so we can move forward.
So is the answer to that question, yes, you've seen, besides ones on the copiers, you've seen other legal pleadings in the Susan Hillygus case?
Perhaps so. I believe I might have.
Maybe, your answer is maybe.
I believe I have.
Okay. So your answer is yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And as well, have you assisted in drafting any of the documents that Roger has filed with the various courts?
No.
Have you previously appeared at the district attorney's office with copies of filings from Roger that he filed in this case, the instant case?
Yes.
Yes.
Your Honor,
I believe.
I believe that under the statutes that he's charged my client with, he's asking him questions that may implicate his Fifth Amendment rights. If he's asking him if he showed up at the DA's office with documents for the DA's office that he's using as part of this criminal prosecution for my client on these 5 counts, I think as an officer of the court, I have an obligation to stand up and say this man may need counsel of his own. Because unless the DA's office given him immunity, because the way I read the statute that was passed a month and 6 days before this alleged incident took place, the way I understand from what the state is saying, there could be potential for criminal charges here, based upon those last 2 questions.
Your response, Mr.
Mr. Evenson misunderstands the question. The question is related to documents that Mr. Hillygus has filed in this criminal case in justice court proceedings were in the hands of this witness at a previous appearance.
Well, that's not what the way the question was phrased, and not the way that I understood it. That was not what he asked, and if that is what he's asking, then I wouldn't have said anything, but that's not the way that question was asked. I just want to be clear.
It's the current question. Go ahead, Mr. Stewart.
Mr. Hillygus has shared with you pleadings or documents that he has filed with this court and this justice court proceeding. Isn't that true?
I believe it is. I don't know 100% what has been filed, what hasn't. I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I really don't know how to answer your question properly.
Isn't it also true that you showed up with paperwork of that type to pretrial conferences?
Yes, I had some paperwork with me.
And that paperwork was provided by Mr. Hillygus, isn't that true?
Yes.
And it's true also that Mr. Hillygus has provided you with various pleadings, various things he wishes to file in relation to this instant justice court prosecution.
Right, I would like an opposing check. I think the question has to be, you can't leave it documents. If you got a specific document, you show it to the witness, did you show up with this or not? Then the witness can at least look at it and make an informed decision whether he did or didn't. But saying, did you show up with documents, what does that really mean without us knowing what that document is? It is speculative. I have no idea what it is they're talking about, and I have to tell you, I spent a heck of a lot of hours in this case. And this sort of thing of documents, whatever, have you this or that, if there's a document he showed up with, show it to him. If he did, he did. If he didn't, he didn't. If he doesn't remember, he doesn't remember. But those are the legitimate answers to it. But the speculative nature, if you showed up with something without us knowing what the something is not a proper question because it is too speculative. So if you got a document, show them, and then we can move on.
Mr. Stege?
That wasn't the question. The question was that whether the defendant has shared with him documents that the defendant intends or intended to file with the court.
So, I think that question can be answered. Documents. I agree, it's vague. Mr. Stege has specified documents intended to be filed with the court. I'll allow him to answer the question. And then counsel, once we do need to take a recess for comfort. We've now been here since a little bit after 1. It's now almost 3:15.
Do you understand the question before you, sir?
Can you ask me, excuse me, one more time?
Isn't it true that Roger Hillygus has shared with you documents that he intends or intended to file in this instant justice court prosecution?
I've seen papers before, but I don't know what documents perhaps you're talking about. I don't know if he ever did or didn't. I'm not sure what he's done with his paperwork. But he showed me paperwork before.
Okay, he showed you things that he was going to file in
Your
this
Honor,
case.
again, I object, that misstates the witness's testimony. He said he showed me papers before, and then Mr. Stege keeps going with, well, you actually mean this, you actually mean this, and that's not appropriate. The witness's answer stands on its own merit.
The man is awarded into the question, and so thus the follow-up question.
I believe this point has been covered multiple ways, multiple times. So I think the answers that the witness has been given, including the one recently which I just allowed, have been the same. So at this point, I think we need to move forward. And again, we do need to take a break.
Is
Does
Mr.
the court
Stege,
want to do that right now?
does Mr. Stege have more questions, or is he done with this witness, or where are we? Is he gonna keep going?
I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
If the court is suggesting it's time for a break,
We
All right.
just need to take a comfort break for
Absolutely.
everyone involved. We've been going for close to 2 hours, so we'll be in recess for approximately 10 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All rise.
Overruled, let's just get through this. I want to know what the facts are.
To find out what the facts were. I agree, the record's a mess.
Right, is there something else that's at issue here beyond,
'In a nutshell, defendant's position is that each of the plaintiff's claims
"5:06 p.m. last night, Council. The rules do not allow that."
Are there going to be other exhibits?
I make a finding that paternity has been established.
Good afternoon, please be seated.
And we are back on the record.
All right, council, we are back from our brief recess. Mr. Stege was questioning Mr. Griffith. Sir, I will remind you that you are still under oath. Go ahead, Mr. Stege.
Sir, so the two people from your party who go across the street toward Stone Valley are Roger and Stu Handte, correct?
Yes,
And you stay in the shade, isn't that true?
yes,
And they come back with Susan Hillygus, is that correct?
no,
Who comes back with Susan Hillygus?
I don't understand. Comes back where?
Comes back from Stone Valley with Susan Hillygus.
That's, well, how you're asking me is not how everything happened.
Okay. Isn't it true that sometime after they left, meaning Stu and Roger, they came back with Susan Hillygus?
No, that's, I didn't see them come back to that spot that I was sitting under the tree.
Okay. Did you see, but you did see Susan Hillygus that day?
Yes, I did.
And you did, after they walked away, you did later see both Roger and Stu. Isn't that true?
No.
You never saw them again?
I saw Stewart again,
Okay.
but not Roger.
You never saw Roger again?
I'm sorry?
You never saw Roger again after he walked off?
After he left my line of sight, I didn't see him again.
For the rest of that day?
Correct.
Okay. And what happened when Susan got out to where you were?
I can't answer that question the way you're asking, because that's not how it happened.
Okay. You said you had seen Susan, you saw Susan Hillygus, correct?
Yes, I went into the facility. I didn't
Okay.
see her outside of the facility.
So you previously misstated that you stayed there until they came back.
I didn't say that I stayed there until they came back.
Okay. Did you accompany Mrs. Hillygus out of Stone Valley?
I did not.
Who did?
Roger
And,
and Stewart
okay.
and staff of the facility.
What staff?
I'm sorry?
What staff,
Staff of the Stone Valley facility.
right? What staff, what they look like?
I believe it was a female with dark colored hair,
Okay,
shorter than I was. I didn't catch her name or anything like that.
okay. So your testimony is, they walked, the defendants. You stay under the tree, correct?
Yes,
They walk out of your sight and into, or do they walk in, do you see them walk into Stone Valley?
they walked, all that I could see was them walk away in the direction of Stone Valley.
Okay. You then get up from underneath the shade and go where?
To the facility, Stone Valley.
Okay. You went into, how far did you go?
I don't understand the question, how far did I go in?
Did you go past the front door?
Yes, sir.
Did you go back in the back portion where Mrs. Hillygus was?
Yes, sir.
Who'd you go there with?
Myself.
Okay. Where was Roger?
Roger was inside of the facility already when I had gotten there.
Where was Stu?
I'm assuming with him. When I got into the facility, I could not see to the back portion where they were.
Okay. And you went back to the back portion, the residence portion of the facility, correct?
I did.
You signed in
I did.
under what name?
My name?
To visit whom?
To visit a friend.
Who?
Bear with me. I can't think of her name right off the top of my head right now. Sorry.
This friend, how do you know her?
I don't, in fact, know her directly by meeting her. I never got a chance to meet her.
Okay. So you went there to meet this person whose name you can't remember, who you never got a chance to meet.
Correct.
You had never met her before.
No, I had never met her.
And on that day, you did not see her.
No, I did not.
Yet you signed in. Oh, yeah, you described her as your friend. Right?
Sorry?
You described her as a friend you went to visit, correct?
No, I wouldn't say a friend. It was somebody that I wanted to meet.
Okay. So your previous testimony that you went to meet a friend was incorrect.
When I say a friend, I was meeting a friend of the family and a friend of my friends.
Okay. So friends of your friends are your friends, is the theory that you had in your mind when you went there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And, once you went in the back, did you see Susan Hillygus come out?
Yes, I did.
Who was she with?
She was with Roger, Stewart, and staff from Stone Valley.
Okay. And did that cause you to stop your visit or your attempt to see your friend of a friend that's a friend?
No, it did not.
You walked past them to the back of the facility? Correct?
That's correct. The back portion of the facility.
As they walked past you towards the exit of the facility or towards the door that leads to the lobby, correct?
Yes.
And you said something happened that prevented you from meeting with this friend of a friend that's a friend.
Yes.
What happened?
As soon as I came in the door to the back portion, the residence portion, I guess you say, there was a woman that approached me, and she was very distraught, and she came to me and begged me to get her out of that facility. She asked me if if I could take her to her house. And she was telling me that she was very scared where she was at, and she didn't feel safe, and she was hoping that I could help her get out of there.
Okay. So what did you do with this woman? Or in response?
I told her that I wasn't able to help her.
Okay. Was this the thing that caused you not to be able to visit this person you had signed in to see?
Yes.
So what did you do next?
I left the facility after that.
Out the door that's been described and into the lobby, correct?
The same door I came through.
And then out into the parking lot, correct?
Yes.
And back to the cars, correct?
No.
Where did you go?
I was in the process of crossing the street, and Stewart happened to be pulling right out of the parking lot at that moment, and he rolled his window down and asked me if I wanted a lift. And I said yes.
And he gave you a lift?
He gave me a ride back to my car at McDonald's in Sun Valley.
In the car that he had driven to the parking lot, correct?
Yeah,
And where was Roger at this point?
I do not.
And
I
did you
didn't see this car.
Okay. Did Roger say, leading up to this, did Roger say where he was going, what he was going to do once he had his mother?
Apart from just taking care of her, he didn't mention where he was going or what he was doing. Apart from, I believe he mentioned something about a bank account, getting a bank account squared away or something like that. That's all I can recall.
Is it true that he mentioned going out of state, taking Mrs. Hillygus out of state?
No, that's not true.
Is it true that you, prior to this date, you had never met Susan Hillygus?
No, that's incorrect.
How many times did you met Mrs. Hillygus?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but I had met her several times because, like I said earlier, the Golden Valley Garage Sales was a very popular event where us in the community would come together and visit each other. So during those moments are the moments when I was able to speak with her and interact with her.
Isn't it true you had not visited or visited her at Stone Valley the entire time she was there?
I have not visited her, no, at Stone Valley.
And what happens in the conversation from Stone Valley to the McDonald's where your car was?
I couldn't be specific on all the things that were said. I don't quite remember, but I believe some of it had to do with that was very good, that everything seemed to work out good, and then I was explaining to Stu what had happened to me, how it wasn't good for me. I didn't have a good experience when that lady approached me and said the things that she said.
Okay. And what way do you mean not good for you?
Because when that lady did that, it made me feel very unsafe, and I felt very, very upset and scared to be in that facility.
You felt unsafe from her?
Not from her.
You felt scared to be in the facility from her or because of her?
Not because of her, because of what she said about the facility.
Okay. What line of work are you in?
Currently, I'm unemployed.
What line of work have you traditionally worked in?
Traditionally, warehouse.
Okay. Have you ever worked in a nursing home?
No.
Have you ever worked in a hospital?
No.
Have you ever had any medical training?
No.
Had you ever visited anyone at Stone Valley? before this date?
No.
Did Handte ever mention, state that he had been trespassed from Stone Valley?
I'm sorry?
Did Mr. Hillygus ever indicate that he had been trespassed from Stone Valley?
No.
Did Mr. Hillygus have a grievance about how people at Stone Valley had treated him?
I believe he did.
And what was the substance of that grievance?
That they weren't properly taking care of his mother.
Okay, what was their specific grievance that he had about how they were treating him or had treated him?
Not that I can recall.
Isn't it true he never complained about being able to visit his mother? Or being restricted from being able to visit his mother?
I believe on one occasion, he mentioned something about the case, that it might have been difficult for him to see her because of the way he had talked to them or something like that.
That, can you be more about who had talked to him?
I'm sorry?
About who had talked to him? The Stone Valley folks or someone else?
No, yeah, I think with Stone Valley, somebody there, I don't know who.
Okay. Once you get home, did you speak with Roger or Stu in the next day?
I believe I spoke with Stewart over the phone, but I didn't speak with Roger.
Okay. And did you ever speak with him prior to his arrest? From the time you left Stone Valley till his arrest?
I don't believe so.
Did you ever travel with Mr. Hillygus to Carson City in the, let's say, 3 weeks leading up to this event?
No, I don't recall traveling to Carson City.
Did you ever visit the PERS office with Mr. Hillygus?
I'm not familiar with what PERS office is.
Okay, a government office related to pensions?
No.
Did Mr. Hillygus ever mention by name the realtors involved in the sale of his house, of Mrs. Hillygus' house?
I don't remember if he actually stated their names or if he just identified them as realtors. I don't remember.
Isn't it true he stated that he had a grievance with them?
Regarding what house?
Regarding the house being sold?
I don't believe he mentioned anything about the realtors.
Isn't it true that he mentioned, did he mention that this paperwork he had was going to assist with preventing the sale of the house?
What paperwork?
The paperwork that he had made copies of.
I'm sorry, you confused me a little bit. I'm not following you very well because you're talking about the day of and then
Yes.
and then weeks before. How would I know weeks before about something that happened 3 weeks later?
Well-
I'm confused.
Okay, I'll try to assist you. Did Roger ever make, let's say in the month before this happened, any statements that he had paperwork that would prevent the sale of the house?
He might have said that he may have had something to that effect, but I can't tell you 100%. I can't
Okay.
remember 100%.
Okay, so if asked later, you will stand by, you don't remember if he ever said something like that.
Well, I can't speak for the future, but right here and now, under the spotlight, I can't recall exactly what he said or didn't say about it. in particular. I couldn't tell you details about it. I don't remember.
Okay, so then you're saying it is not true that Mr. Hillygus thought that the paperwork he had on the date in question or leading up to that would prevent the sale of the house?
Your Honor, this is the fourth time he's asked this question, 4 different ways, and the witness's answer hasn't changed the first 3 times. I have to object to ask an answer.
I submitted.
All right, let's move on, Mr. Stewart.
Did Mr. Hillygus ever discuss his grievance at losing the ability to control Mrs. Hillygus's finances?
I don't remember him mentioning that he lost the ability.
Okay. Did Mr. Hillygus ever tell you that he wanted to be reappointed as the trustee?
I'm not sure that he wasn't. I didn't know whether he had actually been stripped of that or not, or if it was still an ongoing thing. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Did you ever hear Roger Hillygus make the statement that the way to get around guardianship is to take someone, and this is quote, out of state?
No, I don't remember hearing anything like that.
Did Mr. Hillygus ever talk about being on a internet radio show about his struggles with the guardianship?
Yes, I do remember him mentioning something to that.
And Mr. Hillygus told you about, did he tell you about what he discussed in it?
No, I'm sure he probably did. I couldn't tell you. I don't remember it a long time ago.
Did he ever share a link with you or share the video of that with you?
I would assume he probably did, but I
Okay.
don't remember 100%.
Okay, and you and Roger have emailed over the course of your friendship, correct?
Your Honor, if I may, we are here for slight or marginal evidence that a crime was committed and/or my client and/or Mr. Handte committed it. Talking about whether or not these people have ever emailed and statements that may have been made 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, with regards to loss of guardianship privileges. I mean, what are we doing here? I don't see how any of this is relevant or getting us to any point where we're even able to talk about slight or marginal evidence.
Mr. Stege, yes to the relevance objection?
The man has said that the defendant shared a link with him or shared with him the video in the link. The question is, it relates to that in terms of the manner of the sharing.
The question should be when it took place and why it took place and what was going on and how it's relevant to these criminal charges 5 years later.
Well, and Mr. Stege, yes, I don't think you've explained to me why the discussion of the contents of the link shared in an internet show is relevant here.
Okay. After this incident occurred, you were contacted by detectives, is this correct?
I was contacted by whom?
Detectives with the Reno Police Department made attempts to contact you, isn't that true?
You said plural. I don't believe that to be true. All I can remember as far as somebody reaching out from the police department was one detective by the name of Jenkins, I believe.
Okay, and Detective Jenkins reached out to you and asked you to give an interview on the subject that we're here today for. Isn't that true?
I do believe she wanted to have a communication with me, and she wanted to ask me several questions, but at that time, I didn't feel very comfortable speaking to her about the questions she was asking me.
Such as what question?
what I knew about the case.
You weren't comfortable talking about it.
Yes.
Were there any other questions that she asked you that you were not comfortable asking?
I don't know. I mean, she asked me several questions, and I told her that I didn't feel comfortable talking about it without perhaps some kind of counsel or something like that.
Did you in fact decline to meet with her?
Your Honor, he invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege, it sounds like. Can counsel make further comment on that?
Response, Mr. Stege?
Well, it's a question whether he has invoked his right to counsel, and of course, we all know a person not in custody. Miranda is a custodial right. The man not being in custody bears strongly on that question. The number two question is the declining to meet is unrelated or not a statement, even assuming that Mr. Evenson is correct.
Your Honor, could I just chime in a bit? That every American citizen has the right for whether they want to talk to the police or not. The only time they're compelled to testify is under subpoena. My understanding, this man is under subpoena. He's answering the questions. Totally irrelevant whether he wants to or doesn't want to. And that is not fair inquiry to try and impeach him by asking him what the detective said and did he do this or that. He has the absolute right under the Constitution of Nevada, federal Constitution, and I don't think that has ever been in dispute, at least for the last 250 years. So I don't know what this is leading to on this person. He's asserted, he's told why he didn't want to talk. That's the end of the story. He's here now. That's the subpoena.
I agree, obviously we all have those rights. But I think Mr. Stege can ask whether or not this witness met with somebody. But I agree, Mr. Stege, at some point we need to, again, move forward from this line of question.
I understand. Is it true you declined to meet with Detective Jenkins? What?
Your Honor, this
Is that
takes the testimony. He says he met with her, he was not comfortable talking to her, and he invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. What else is there to say? I mean, why are we still going down this road?
They never met.
I believe he said that he talked to her and said he wasn't comfortable talking to her and asked for it.
Talk to her is different than meeting with her.
Oh, boy.
I believe what Mr. Stege is referring to, formal interview. That's what he means by meeting.
Okay.
I think he can ask that question, and I've already said I believe that, yes, we need to move along.
So,
Go ahead.
that's
you
a
can
statement.
ask the question.
Okay. It's true you declined to meet in person with Detective Jenkins.
Yes.
Didn't you say that did you tell her that your dad said not to?
Your Honor, you just told him to get that information out and move on, and that the reason's irrelevant. Now we're getting into what his dad told him?
Mr. Stege,
Well,
let's address the relevance of this kind of this.
Okay. It goes to bias, right? The man has, the story today says previously he was not comfortable giving a statement about the events of that day. Claims, right, the counsel angle, different angle. This calls into question that angle and the motivation and bias.
I just want to be clear about where this man was, as I understand it, at the time he invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. We have a case that attracted international news attention. We had purportedly alerts all over the West Coast. My client being allegedly being involved with this horrible activity. All this stuff going on at the time. He's interviewed that day or in the middle of all that by somebody, and he invokes his Fifth Amendment right, and Mr. Stege now wishes to have you hold that against him for bias. I just want to make it clear that that's where we are in the record today. And it is completely inappropriate for the prosecution to do this, and I strenuously object.
And I'll allow you to answer, Mr. Stege, but again, some of these things are more proper for argument as opposed to question.
I just want to disabuse Mr. Evenson of his understanding of this case. That there was never a meeting in person. right? This was telephone contact, which demanded a client for the two, at least the two stated reasons. So
Which he has a
the
right.
fanfare about sort of this custodial issue is overblown. And I am prepared to move on if I get an answer to that question.
About whether or not his dad told him not to meet with him? Again, why is this relevant? He's dead.
If he relays that as a reason that my dad says not to is a little different, is different than first.
Well, and I still don't see the link between the potential bias. Obviously, you can make arguments at the appropriate time and draw inferences, but I think that we need to move on, and you've made your points on that.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness, thank you.
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Pitaro?
Your Honor, first, I've got this marked.
You may.
Mr. Pitaro.
What's that?
There's one marked already.
What number?
I'll help you with it. They're all up here.
No, go ahead.
Either one, but
Okay, you're fine.
I'll show you.
I know what it is.
I've marked this F.
We'll just use that then. I don't think he's gonna be able to testify as to the second page, but doesn't matter.
But if you wanted it,
Yeah.
I'll stip it in if you
All
want.
right.
If you want.
Your Honor, have a stipulation to introduce what's marked as State's Exhibit F, which is a two-page document.
That is correct, Your Honor, from my vantage point.
And mine, thank you.
All right, shall be
Thank you.
admitted.
Mr. Griffith, I want to just go over this a little quicker than we have earlier, but you were present when Mr. Hillygus and a person from the Reno Police Department met down at the police station, you said, correct?
Yes.
You told us that after that happened, and I want to take us now to when you are brought, you go with Mr. Hillygus over to the area of the Stone Valley rest home, okay?
Okay.
And you said that when you guys, when you two gentlemen pulled up there, you parked in a shaded spot.
Yes, we did.
And when you're in the shade, you then got out of the automobile and sat under a tree?
Correct.
And probably what time of the day, within a few hours, was this?
Afternoon, I'd say before 4 o'clock.
And I mean, you said you've lived here 35 years. Even in 2019, it got hot in August in Washoe County. And that's why you were sitting under the tree.
Well, most definitely.
Now, you then said that Mr. Handte came up, and then the three of you were outside in the shade area, correct? Now, I want to carry it forward at that point. On direct examination, the prosecutor seemed to imply, and I do want to clear this up, that you stayed under the tree while Mr. Handte and Mr. Hillygus went inside the restroom. That's not correct, is it?
Momentarily, yes, I stayed under the tree.
But not for the whole period of time.
No, sir.
And what you told us is that at some point in time, then you went in to the rest home.
Yes, I did.
And you went in, when you went in by yourself, if you will.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Handte and Mr. Hillygus were already in there, as far as you know.
Yes.
And when you went into the facility, you said that you asked to see an individual, you went there to look, see an individual, correct?
Yes, I remember her name now.
Okay. And we'll get there in just one sec. This was a number of years ago, right?
Yes.
3 years ago.
Yes.
And what I want to get into, though, is you said that you wanted to meet her because she was an acquaintance or a friend of your family.
Yes, and of Roger's family.
So that was the reason you wanted to see her.
Yes, I've heard many stories about her, and I wanted to meet her in person.
Now, when you first walked in, may I approach?
You may.
Here, let me, you can look at this here. You gotta just make sure you keep talking in the microphone. Now, I showed you what is, look at the backside, what is been exhibited, no, this is the last 7 days, as exhibit, the red sticker, that's all. Just tell me the number,
36?
turn it over.
Oh, I'm sorry, half.
Okay. Now, you said that when you walked into the facility, you went in through the front door,
Yes, I did.
and you went onto the counter?
The sign-in counter?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
And when you were there, did you have conversation with some of the staff personnel? That is people that work there.
In the front part?
Yes.
I did, and in the back part.
Okay, let's stay right at the front part. And were you then given a sign-in sheet, or you signed in a sign-in sheet?
Yes, there is a sign-in sheet on the counter.
And the exhibit in front of you, I want you to look at that. Is that the first page, have the indication where you in fact signed in?
Yes, that's right. I appear to sign in right there.
And does it have your name?
Yes.
And what does it say there?
It gives the date, 8/8/19. My name Tracy, resident to see Alice, and the time in at 2:15, and then time out at 2:18.
Okay, now, time in and time out. Now, Alice, is that the name of the lady that you went in to see?
It is.
And you told us that because she was a friend, you wanted to meet her, but you didn't get the chance to meet her because some other individual came up to you.
That's correct.
And I think you testified in direct examination concerning that person, that was, I guess, unnerving or frightening with the things that she was saying.
Yes, it was.
And that disturbed you?
It did indeed.
And that was the thing you said interfered with you going forward.
I left immediately.
And as we look at the time in and time out sheet, it's pretty quick, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
How many minutes is it in the exhibit shows from the time you signed in out?
3 minutes?
3 minutes, so this was a very, very quick thing for you.
Yes.
Now, you asked the person in the front desk, whoever this person was, that you wanted to see Alice? You gave them the name, correct, from the sign-in sheet?
I'm sorry?
You gave them the name of the person you initially wanted to see.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do you remember that person's name at all or not?
The person that I spoke to at the front desk, I don't remember her name.
Okay. Now, from the front desk, were you then buzzed into or a door opened that allowed you to get into a different area?
Yes, I was.
And they had to let you in that?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when you went in?
Yes.
Now, then you say you then left and then you went back outside. By that time, you said Mr. Hillygus was gone, and then you left with Mr. Handte back to your vehicle.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's the sequence of it.
Yes.
So you went in, short period of time, and then come out. Had you ever, let me just ask you this, in your experience, had you ever run into a situation where a person has ever come up to you and said that they wanted to help you to get out because they were frightened? In that sort of a situation?
I'm sorry, maybe you could ask again, I'm a
Sure.
little confused.
I understand. What I'm saying is this was an unusual situation for you, wasn't it, when this lady came up to you?
Yes, it was.
As a matter of fact, it was the only time in your life it ever happened, wasn't it?
I can't recall anybody ever coming to me like that
And that unnerved you.
in my life.
All right, and that's why you left.
Yes.
Now, you said that you listened to or watched the thumb drive, the meeting with the police officer at the Reno Police Department, yourself and Mr. Hillygus? Okay, the question I have is, where did you look at that video?
It was in the DA's office, I believe.
All right, so they'd asked you to come down and review it?
No, it was today.
Okay, but they came down and asked you to look at it?
They brought it to me on a laptop and asked me to review it.
And you did?
Yes, sir.
And you're here under subpoena, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, subpoenaed by the state.
Yes, sir.
And did you, who was it that asked you to review the thumb drive, the tape, if you will?
I believe his name is Gary. John Gary.
And he was one of the, he was a detective, to the best of your knowledge? Or a police officer?
Well, he has a badge and a gun.
Okay, well, that's generally a good indication. And this is after you were subpoenaed? And you complied with the request?
Yes.
And then you've come into court and you've testified?
Yes.
All right. Now, there was a lot of talk about these, what you did or didn't do with legal pleadings. Do you have any training in the law?
No, sir.
Are you familiar or comfortable with the concepts of legal pleadings?
No, I'm not very comfortable with it.
All right. Now, you were just asked generally. Do you have any? Were you shown any specific documents today when you met with the individual who had the badge and the gun? Were you shown any documents by him?
Other than the thumb drive, no.
So no one ever asked you about that until you got up here in the stand?
Correct.
And no one's ever showed you what they were talking about?
And as far
I've
as the
tried
thumb
to, it's vagueness.
Okay. Did anyone today show you what these documents that they asked you in the stand were about?
drive? No.
They have asked you to look at any?
No.
They asked you to identify any of them?
No.
And as you sit here today, going back to use, do you have any specific recollection of any of them?
No.
Or the content?
No.
Outside of the fact that they were somehow legal documents?
Yes.
And that's about the extent of your knowledge on it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Stege, can you redirect?
This interaction you had with the woman inside in the residence area, that was, I think you had previously said frightening to you or scary to you,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And that caused you to be afraid for that woman's welfare. Is that what you were inferring?
No, I was afraid for my well-being, because of the things that she said. I felt very outnumbered and isolated, and I didn't want something bad to happen.
Something bad happened to you?
Yes.
Okay. You stated that you had heard many stories about this woman, correct?
I'm sorry, what woman?
The woman that you had never met but were there to visit, that you signed in to visit.
Yes.
You had heard many stories, okay.
What about her and her family?
Okay. You still have that exhibit before you?
It's still us, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that exhibit that you have. Do you know this woman's last name you went to visit?
I'm sorry?
Do you know the woman's last name?
I believe it's ghetto.
Thank you. No further questions.
Anything else based on that?
Not for me, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Councilman, please be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You may be excused. Mr. Stege, your next witness?
Court's brief indulgence.
Certainly.
Your papers, sir.
Oh, thank you. Could I inquire, are we breaking it by,
Well, are we gonna, how many more do you have?
because I keep going,
Well,
get the viewer, please.
Well,
Well, I'm happy to confer with counsel off the record rather than being addressed by counsel on the record.
that's fine.
Certainly. Would you like me to step out for 2 moments so you can have the discussion?
That would be great.
All right, I'll do that. Just let me know when
All
you
right.
get me back.
All rise.
Yeah, please be seated.
And we are back on the record.
Council, I believe we were discussing how we'd like to continue forward today and perhaps beyond. Any resolution on that, Mr. Stege?
Only to say that I'm confident we will need another day to do testimony. And I think going to 5 is sort of, everyone's comfortable with going to 5. I don't think anyone wants to go beyond that,
No, you're,
unless you want to.
no, the plane is, what was it? 6:50, so I gotta go check out and then, that's all.
Certainly, as long as you're comfortable going till 5.
Do we have someone for 5, or do we have a quick one?
So, they can all be quick,
That was a
Mr.
fool.
Pitaro, you know that. Yes, I'm bearing that in mind. I'm trying to.
Let's use the moments we have until 5
Yes.
o'clock. If there's another witness ready, let's go forward. And then we will also need probably a bit of time at the end to talk about when we'd like to
Yes.
continue this forward. So I'll end a bit early before 5 so we can have that discussion.
Okay.
Ms. King, Felicia King.
Who?
King
Felicia King.
relates to, not your neck.
Please, come right
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I don't know what those documents are that you have, but if you could please set them to the side there up on the bench. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you promise the testimony you're about to provide shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? Thank you. Please be seated.
Before we proceed, Your Honor, Mr. Griffith is seated in the gallery of this courtroom. I ask that he be excused because, for the following reason. He will be he's expected to be a witness at trial. The underlying rationale of the exclusionary rule would still apply going forward.
Any comment on that, Mr. Evenson or Mr. Pitaro?
No, you want to leave it quick. Normally, once the witness is done, they can sit in, but if they're gonna make that representation, I have no problem with that. I mean, we only got 20 more minutes anyway.
Sounds great to me, Your Honor.
All right, so Mr. Griffith, if you could please be located outside of this courtroom. Thank you.
Am I okay to just leave that, or?
Yes,
or
you can
instruct
excuse
me?
the witness, sir. You may absolutely leave.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
27 more.
And Ms. King has been sworn in.
Thank you. Madam, will you please state and spell your name?
Felicia King, Feliciaking.
How are you currently employed?
I am a retirement director of the Nevada Public Employees Retirement System.
And how long have you worked in that, for that agency?
About 7.5 years.
Are you familiar with when Susan Hillygus had a PERS account?
Yes.
And in the course of that, sometime, in fact, on July 26th of 2019, did records come into the PERS office purporting to relate to?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the form of the question. I believe it's leading and supplies an answer that may not be what the facts are.
Mr. Stege.
I'll rephrase the question.
All right.
Was any paperwork received within the PERS office on or about July 26, 2019?
Yes.
related to, or purporting to relate to Mrs. Hillygus' account.
Yes.
And in the ordinary course, well, as that was received, was it stamped, or what, was anything done to it to indicate that it was received by PERS?
Yes, it was date stamped, all documents including the stamp.
And do you know where they came from? All incoming documents, incoming to where?
In this case, it was met with one of my counselors, and it was directly given over a desk, and the counselor stamped it down.
And this, where is your office located?
The PERS office or
Yes.
mine directly?
Where this was stamped in and turned over to you?
It's in our accounting services division, in our Carson City location.
So within Carson City, it came in to a counselor, and what does a counselor do?
Counselor meets with members and retirees regarding setting up their retirement, or if they are already retired, making any changes on their account.
I wonder if you might speak up, it's been a long day for me, so I'm having a hard time hearing you. So, and then from the counselor, the paperwork came to you having been stamped as received within PERS.
Yes,
And from there, it became part of the records of PERS.
yes,
And you were asked to provide copies of these records that were provided to on the 26th of July, correct?
yes.
And approach the witness with proposed aye.
You may.
Have that.
Well, do you have the actual I itself, or are you? I just want to make sure it's the same thing, that's all. Okay. I'm sure. Oh, it's not
I
that.
don't-
No, it's not that, it's just, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
I have one that has those big stamps on it.
No, it's fine, that's, no, it's fine.
Will you please review proposed I, ma'am? Do you recognize that proposed exhibit?
Yes,
And how is it that you recognize it?
these are the same documents that were submitted to our office on July 26th.
That became part of the records of the PERS department, correct?
Correct.
Who did the exhibit?
Your Honor, may I have my rights of cross-examination before those are to be admitted?
So if you're asking, I'll allow you to voir dire the witness at this point if there's a specific point you're after, but unless Mr. Stege's agreeing to that.
No.
Okay, well, if necessary, Judge, will the court consider a motion to strike after cross-examination? Well, I can voir dire the witness, whatever's easiest for the court.
Okay, let's
Okay.
go ahead and do that. If you have
Okay.
questions and
I do.
objections, let's do it.
Very good, thank you. Ma'am, just to be clear, the document that is in front of you has a file stamped and received also from the Nevada Supreme Court. Is that correct?
That is correct?
Do you have the envelope that this document came in?
No,
Do you have any proof at all that it was sent to your office by anybody?
it was not sent in, it was walked in. We do have sign-in sheets from that day.
Okay, and have those been provided?
No,
Okay, and did anybody ask for those sign-in sheets prior to today?
no,
At any point on this document, does it say that it was signed in, that it was walked in as opposed to mailed in?
no.
Okay, so, and relative to that, the address, the office that this was purportedly walked into is in what county?
Carson City,
And the office where this was received is in what county?
Carson City.
Understanding that Carson City may not be a county, but that's that quirky technicality we have with counties in the state of Nevada, and I was raised on buses that said Ormsby County on the side of them, so I know all about it. In any event, and the address at the top of this indicates Dayton, Nevada. Do you know what county Dayton, Nevada is in?
Lyman?
Okay. Is there anything at all that connects this document to Washoe County, Nevada?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Do you know where the confines?
I don't know.
Seriously.
Hold on. Again, we can't speak over each other.
Understood.
We can't hear, and when there's cross chatter back and forth, it makes things very muddy. So, would you ask your question again, and then Mr.
Thank you.
Stege can raise his objection?
I will
Is there any-
withdraw it in the interest of time. Sorry, Mr.
Thank
Evenson.
you.
Okay.
Is there anything on this letter of this, not where these documents, the documents that are attached to it, but on the face of the letter itself, is there anything to your knowledge that took place in Washoe County involving the delivery of this document to PERS?
Not to my knowledge.
Was it mailed from Washoe County?
No,
Was it received in Washoe County?
no,
Do you have the envelope that it came in?
no,
Or do you have anything at all about that?
no.
But nothing further, Your Honor. This document and this charge lacks the jurisdiction of this court and should not be admitted.
Mr. Stege?
The jurisdiction and venue question I expect to address as it relates to the charging, but as to the court having jurisdiction over the document, that's an improper objection. And I would not change my position on moving to admit it, although I may ask some follow-up for foundation purposes.
Judge, just to be clear, a charge before this court has to take place within the confines of Washoe County, Nevada. That's the state law. The witnesses admitted that this was purportedly walked in Carson City. It is marked, stamped, and received in Carson City. And it involves, even if it was mailed from Dayton, Nevada. There is literally no connection with Washoe County to this document of any kind at all. And this court should not allow it into evidence unless that can be proven, because you don't have jurisdiction to receive it.
So, Mr. Evenson, those are all things that you can, of course, argue at the appropriate time. But at this point, whether or not the court can admit the document is a separate question from the end result, so to speak, which
Okay.
you are directing me to. So I will allow Mr. Stege to continue, as he indicates, laying some foundation regarding this document.
And you indicated it's your belief that or your understanding that this was a walked-in document.
Yes.
And what is the foundation or reason for saying that?
When somebody walks in, we have them sign in up front before they come back and meet with the counselor.
Okay,
So we do have a copy of the signing sheet at the office. It was walked in and met with the counselor one-on-one and given to the counselor at that time and not at the front desk.
okay, and then it came to you.
Yes,
And you said you did bring the sign-in sheets with you today, correct?
I do not.
Okay, do you know if there was a sign-in sheet, if on that sign-in sheet, Roger Hillygus' name was signed in?
Yes,
And was he signed it on that sheet?
yes.
Are you willing to provide a copy of that sign-in sheet?
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that that be struck as the best evidence rule. Just because it's his name doesn't mean he signed it. She can say, I think it was Roger Hillygus' name, but I have no idea who was actually there because I don't know who signed that. I don't know
And
who it was.
Mr. Vincent, again, those are things you can argue, certainly, but we're just talking about a different matter at this point.
Okay.
Are you willing to provide those documents to the state,
Yes.
the sign sheet? I renew my motion to admit the document.
And I object, Judge, there's no jurisdiction over this charge, therefore this court doesn't have jurisdiction, therefore it should not exercise its jurisdiction to admit the document. Unless Mr. Stege has an offer of proof to connect this count to Washoe County by some means, this court has no jurisdiction to hear it.
So again, those are issues that can be argued at the end. Right now, we're just talking about, does the document meet other evidentiary standards? I believe it does. I will allow it to be admitted.
And may I raise one other objection, Your Honor? Is this a certified copy of the document?
I do not certify it, no.
Are you the custodian of the records?
I am a custodian, a record, I am a notary, but no, those were not notarized or written.
Well, when you say that you're a custodian of record, is there more than one custodian of records within PERS?
Yes.
Okay? And who are those people that are custodians of records and PERS for legal purposes?
The one I'm most aware of is Carrie Harrison.
Beg your pardon?
Carrie-
Ma'am, I can't hear you through the mask, so you're just gonna have to speak up.
I'm not sure how many are custodian of record. I believe I know 2 of them who are not present today. Carrie Harrison or Walter Zron.
Okay, are you officially designated by PERS as a custodian of records, meaning that,
Sorry, no, I'm not.
okay, so you're not a custodian of records?
Correct.
Okay, so you have no legal authority from PERS to vouch for the authenticity of this document?
Objection, that's not a legal requirement that someone be able to vouch for that, so that therefore the question is not relevant.
It would not be relevant if the document was certified. But
Again,
again,
with this hyper-technical stuff, Your Honor, the court is
Mr.
basically admitting it.
Stege, please don't interrupt Mr. Evenson is speaking. Again, as I've said many times throughout the course of today, I can't pay attention to either party when there's interruptions. Go ahead, Mr. Evenson, you can finish, and I'll let you respond, Mr. Stege.
thank you, Your Honor. The issue is the authenticity of the documents that were handed in, okay? That is what the certification of a record is required for. She is not a custodian of records. I'm not even sure under the statute that because she's not a custodian of record, if her testimony is improper to do this. This is like calling in an employee from some shop and saying, well, this is a record that's in our shop, it's commonly kept, and there's this other record that says that they came in, and that appears to be what's in our file because I copied it. Well, they're not a custodian of records. These and for Mr. Stege to argue that these are hyper-technical requirements, it's not, this case isn't about him. It's about whether or not the evidentiary standards that are required under the law are being met by the state. And without a custodian of records here and without a certified document, I don't believe that this court can admit this document into evidence today.
Mr. Stege, your response?
There's no such thing as a person legally authorized to be a custodian of records. There is no such thing as a person legally able to vouch for a record. The scenario put forth by Mr. Evenson, an employee of a shop, to say, yes, this is within the files kept in the ordinary course of business, would be admissible under the rule. We can wish for that the rule was everything must be certified and the person must bear the title of custodian of records. False. Our rules of evidence say as proof from a custodian, an affidavit by a custodian, or other person with knowledge sitting before this court. And as a result, the court already admitted it, so.
Your Honor, may I respond?
No, I've heard enough on this issue. We've already had similar arguments made before. So authenticating, the proponent must produce evidence sufficient to support a finding that the item is what the proponent claims it is. Testimony of a witness with knowledge is an acceptable way to prove that, so I will allow it.
Your Honor, I refer the court to NRS 52.260, which directly contradicts Mr. Stege regarding the term custodian of records. It is a term of art. It is defined under that statute, subsection 6A. An employee or agent of the employer who has the care, custody, and control of the records of the regularly conducted activity of the employer. It is a term of legal art, and records include memorandum reports, records, or compilation of data. And it is important that a custodian of records come in and testify and verify to the authenticity of the documents before the court. I object to its admittance. Thank you for allowing me to make the record.
Just one more, Mr. Stege. And just for the record, Mr. Evenson, the statute you cite discusses a custodian of record or other qualified person. And I believe that's what we have here. So let's go forward, Mr. Stege.
Were you familiar with the, or are you familiar with the pension or what's the retirement account of Mrs. Hillygus?
Yes.
And do you know if Roger Hillygus had previously been the trustee of that account?
I do not have that record.
Okay. And is it, okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Evenson or Mr. Pitaro?
No, Your Honor. Nothing further on that issue, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, may this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused. Council, it is almost 4:40. We will need some time to discuss the future date, how we're going to proceed, unless, Mr. Stewart, you believe you have a witness that will be very brief.
My hopes do not rise that high. That's our last point, so.
All right, so let's adjourn the testimony for today, and let's talk about, council, when we would like to reconvene. And in doing so, there's a couple questions. Does council realistically think one more day would suffice? Do we need 2 more days? Do we need 3 days? I'd rather plan more than we need and be able to cancel it than not set aside enough time. And obviously, since this case has already began, I don't want to look for dates that are too far out. I'd like to keep the dates close. Does council have any ideas? I know the clerk has started to look for some potential dates for when we can reconvene. Evenson, do you perhaps want to state what some of those suggested dates
Your
might
Honor,
be?
can I just, I don't have an idea what it is. I would suggest that the 3 of us, we get with Mr. Stege and see how many witnesses he have, and then realistically do it. Get with the clerk, see what the dates are, and then go from there. I don't think the way today is gone, that 1 day is gonna be enough.
How many more proposed witnesses does Mr. Stege have?
So if you want to talk about this amongst yourselves and plan it with the clerk without me present, that's fine. I think that's a great way to do it. So if you need my involvement, I'm here.
I would ask the court for the court's involvement, only because it's not, none of us, it's our first time doing this. I am of the court's mind, let's sort of get this quickly resolved. It'll help with everyone's memories and as well as get the case moving. I would suggest.
All I'm saying, how many it is, and then we can talk tomorrow, Friday, and do it. I don't know what the clerk's is, and quite truth, I don't know what mine is. As I sit here, the last we talked about is that Mr. Stege was at the lead town, and we had no problem with it. We should be able to come up with something. Does the court have certain days that we would be looking at? I mean, like, this is a Wednesday. I mean, are you looking at Thursday, Fridays, Monday,
So
Tuesdays?
we were looking at Fridays, we were looking at other days. I would even be willing to perhaps move or bump some other cases so that the court already has set so that we can hear this since we've already started it.
Sure.
And as you all are aware, there are a number of cases that are trying to move forward now from the last year and a half, so we're all in a time crunch that way. I know the district court's attempting to hold a stacked trial calendar as well. So I'm willing to be flexible. I can tell other cases they've got to wait so we can get this one finished. I'm willing to do any of those things. If y'all can come up with some dates, the court's willing to be flexible.
May I just want to lay a record as to my a target date for me.
Okay.
I know my convenience is of no more or less value than anyone else's. But the court mentioned the stacked calendars. I was on the August 23rd stack for a 2-week trial. That opens up that time period, so I hope and urge my colleagues in the court to, if we can, land during that time frame.
Yeah, and
I like Fridays.
And I have a trial that time that I don't think is gonna go, but as of
You don't know.
till this week, we're trying to get with the prosecutor to see if we're resolving it or not.
And I'm sympathetic to Mr. Pitaro's calendar for sure as well.
Yeah, I think he's in the same boat. I'm sure Las Vegas is in the same boat that we all are. We're trying to schedule a lot of things in a short period of time. So, Mr. Stege, you're indicating that you would like to schedule something around the August 23rd time period where your trial has been vacated?
Yes, that time is open any day of the week. I'm happy to be here.
And Mr. Pitaro, you indicated that you may be available, you just might not
Yes,
know until the end of the week.
When I get back to the office, we'll get with the prosecutor, see what we can do on it. And then, but I guess the real issue is, Your Honor, is it gonna be 2 days or not?
Even given what I've learned today with my colleagues here, I aspire that within a day, one more day we could get it done.
A history. That's family history, we know.
But we're.
Okay,
We're joking.
okay, I will trust council if they think one day will suffice. Perhaps a day and a half, 2 days. I just don't want us to be in a position where we're continuing on a third part yet again. I'd rather us really focus and be able to use the time that everyone needs, but,
How is the court looking that week of August 23rd and I guess into the next week? Is that where we are?
So the 2 days that before, I knew you guys were looking at maybe 2 days, we did come up with August 27th, which is a Friday, September 3rd, which is also a Friday, and then we have, October 1st, but that was just another Friday available.
So what is it, which you said?
August 27th of Friday.
27th? All right, I'll double check on that.
Friday.
That works, so.
Mr. Evenson?
Judge, I would have to inquire of a district court judge in Ely as to whether or not he's willing to move a divorce trial that hasn't been moved before. I actually have a settlement conference on that coming up, and I can email the prosecutor while Mr. Pitaro is sorting out his criminal calendar and find out. I would have to move something on the 27th. I'm not opposed to moving it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And I hope I can invoke your court and your name in so requesting the move and the difficulty and time it's taken to do this.
Of course.
Thank you.
You know, my case is a racketeering, and if it goes, it's gonna go a while, but I don't think it's gonna go, I just gotta get the deal done.
So we're both need to check our calendars, it sounds like.
That's fine, I understand that. Did you, I was going to say the 27th?
No, Judge.
Okay, so it sounds like tentatively pending some schedule checks, which I certainly will allow council to do, that August 27th might work. I'd like to start at 8:30 if we could.
Okay.
And I will devote the whole day to it. And we'll see where we are. Another option is, I don't know if the afternoon of the 26th is available. Perhaps we could start the afternoon of the 26th and continue into Friday the 27th. That way we have a day and a half. If that's
The only thing that would require is for the district attorney's office in Washoe County to continue a misdemeanor DUI trial I have in scenic Wadsworth. Perhaps Mr. Stege can engineer that result.
Well,
It's difficult joking on the record, but I'm picking up what Mr. Evenson is putting down. Here's, I have a sentencing at 9 o'clock on a jury trial.
on the 26th?
On the 26th.
So if we start-
I expect to be done by then, although I don't know without mentioning names, the pace of that department isn't as easy to predict as others.
I
So
was
yes,
going off from,
let's
Are you okay
pencil
with
that in.
I don't know, that's what, I was going off from a reckless way to say.
So council, it sounds like we've got some good ideas. Let's see
Yes.
if perhaps the afternoon of the 26th, certainly the
Yes.
day of the 27th will work. Just please contact the court and let us know so we can make those accommodations.
I'm not at all opposed to starting on Wednesday, Thursday the 26th, that'd be a good idea.
All right, so please check that out, let our clerk know, and we'll get that
Right.
scheduled.
Thank you, Reno, appreciate your,
Thank you all for being here today.
All right.
that's yours.
Thank you, Your Honor.